Welcome to the Roots of America and episode number 2. Today we are discussing defunding the police and its effect on our cities and our nation. This is such an important and polarizing topic. On one side, you have people who believe police are too heavy-handed, racist, and too much like a military. And on the other side, you have people who believe that police are key to stable communities. So where do you stand? I want to start this episode with a few questions. Number 1. Is our nation and our cities becoming less violent or more violent? Question 2. If you think more violent, well, what's causing it? Is it our political environment? Maybe social media giving everyone a platform? What about a lack of respect for proper authority? Or maybe it's an increase in mental health problems. And question number 3, how can we best decrease violence and crime in our cities? If you aren't sure about your answers to my questions, then I invite you to call your local police department and sign up for a ride-along. It's where you get to go with some police officers in their car to shadow them during their shift. I think your perspective may change if you take that invitation. Alright, so what is the defund police movement anyway? Well, the basic premise is that police have become too forceful with how they interact with the public, and crime and officer-involved shootings are increasing because police are becoming more aggressive and more violent. In essence, the defunders are saying police are in large part to blame for the escalation of violence in our cities. The solution being presented is to take money away from police departments and hire more social workers who, they say, will de-escalate violence and bring more peace to our communities. Okay, if you watched or listened to our first episode, I talk about how the foundation of America is built on liberty, freedom, and security. So defunding the police really cuts into our security, which has a direct impact on our liberties and freedom. So how did we get here, to the point that we're talking about taking a lot of money away from our police departments? Well, 3 words: elections have consequences. In most cities, there's a mayor and a city council. They hire the police chief and set the budget for the police department. If that mayor and only a few members of the city council aren't fans of the police or don't stand up to local defunders, then all it takes is a few votes, and your local police department finds itself without enough money to pay for salaries and needed resources. Here's a staggering fact. Did you know that in 2021 alone, about $1 billion was cut from local police departments? How? Elections have consequences. Did you know that over 10,000 police officers have already left their local departments due to the defund movement? Well, why? Elections have consequences. A strong show of support from local political leaders goes a long way in supporting all the good police officers. So in response to this defund movement, I want to cover 3 topics that show why defunding our police departments is only going to bring more problems to our communities. So first we'll cover the economic impact of defunding, then we'll talk about the social impact of defunding, and then we'll ask ourselves, to wrap things up, what are we teaching our children? Before we go any further, I want to address the elephant in the room. Are there racist police officers? Yes. Are there racist chiefs of police? Yes. Are there police departments who don't correctly address racist actions? Yes. However, this is a small minority of police officers, and we should not cripple entire police departments nationwide due to the actions of some officers. Now, if an officer attacks or kills a suspect based on racist beliefs, then that officer should be terminated and prosecuted. Our police should be held to a higher standard, but only if we give them a higher level of support and training. We expect so much from our police officers, yet we regularly change laws and budgets to suit prevailing political and social positions of the day. Consistency goes a long way in maintaining safety and security in our communities. Alright, so how does defunding the police impact our economy? Well, let me make a few statements to illustrate my point and see if you agree. First one, I don't want to go on vacation to a city where they don't have safe streets, shopping, and tourist destinations. Or how about this one? I don't want to hold my business convention in a city without good public safety. Or this one, I don't want to invest my money where there isn't a reasonable assurance of safety to protect my customers and my business. Why are there so few businesses that thrive in the unsafe parts of town? In order for our cities to survive and for people to stay, there has to be economic stability and growth. Almost every city that lost its economic footing became a ghost town. The only parts of town that are growing is where there's safety and security. What's interesting to me is that many politicians agree with the defund movement, and then they wonder why their cities start running into budget and revenue problems. I'll tell you what, if you don't make me feel safe and secure, I'm taking my dollars somewhere else. I can't be that much different in my thinking from most people. Now, let's talk about the social impact of defunding our police departments. Now, here's a rapidly growing problem in America, and we've become addicted to labeling everyone. We are only known by our labels, and we are all being put into groups on a regular basis. So too for the police. They're all being labeled as aggressive, racist, and overbearing because a very small number of officers are bad. With this increasing suspect attitude towards our police, their job becomes more difficult, and it's becoming harder for them to determine who has criminal intent and who's just an annoying person. Have you ever been to even a small crime scene when the police show up? Instantly, everyone pulls out their cell phones and starts taking video, hoping to be the next viral TikTok or Instagram star, exposing something the police did. How do you think you'd perform on your job if most everyone expected you to fail or mess up, and they had a video camera on you all day long? Unfortunately, both sides are ramping up, and it's causing more violent clashes between criminals and police. And unfortunately, it's empowering more people to push their luck with police, and which makes their job that much harder. This brings us to a very important distinction about who is labeled as a bad cop. Now, on one hand, you have truly bad officers with intent to cause harm, but on the other hand, you have good officers who don't react correctly in a very stressful situation. Both are labeled as bad, and if the good cop who made a bad decision under stress isn't immediately fired and prosecuted, then that entire department is labeled as corrupt. The majority of us non-police officers don't understand how much stress good cops are under. They literally leave their home to start their shift, not knowing if they'll be coming home or what mental effects they'll suffer based on what happens on their shift. If you have any friends or family who are police, ask them about the increasing struggles of stress and PTSD that police officers suffer every day. Another social effect of defunding the police is the removal of police presence in our high schools. So these police officers, known as school resource officers or SROs, are being removed by school boards all over the nation in cities like Oakland, Milwaukee, Chicago, to name a few. The complaint is that police in our schools increases violence and builds a fear of police, even though these SRO officers have local police officers acting as mentors, teaching some classes, and of course, campus safety. I served on my local school board for 4 years, and we worked really hard and for quite a while to get student resource officers into each of our high schools, and it had a positive effect. Now, that's the feedback from students and teachers. Now, were there some altercations between students and the officer? Yeah, there was. But 90% of the time, it was the cocky high school kid trying to act cool in front of his friends and pushing the officer's hot buttons. If police officers aren't doing what they're supposed to do, then perhaps some additional training is the answer. I don't think reducing budgets and labeling all police as the bad guys is going to help with training and community relations. Too many police are leaving the profession, which only adds more pressure to the police who stay. I'll tell you what, I tip my hat to the officers who are working through these divisive problems and really just want to do their jobs to protect our communities. Now, I would never make an excuse for a bad police officer, but wow, I don't know how the good cops are keeping their sanity with all the anti-police sentiment in so many of our cities. Finally, what are we teaching our children about the police? Respecting authority, and why they should think about even becoming a police officer someday. When I was a kid, we always played cops and robbers. Being a police officer was cool, and we respected the police. Now, as mentioned earlier, I know that some kids fear cops because of the inappropriate actions of some of those police officers. But let's not forget that is a very small minority of officers, and the vast majority of police want to protect and defend our kids. If we keep demeaning good police officers and reducing their pay and their resources, we will continually see an increase in the lack of respect for authority, especially amongst our youth. And yes, it's increasing at an alarming rate. And what will be the result? More antagonism between police and the communities they serve. Cops aren't perfect for sure, but the more hassle we give them, the harder it is for them to show respect back. So even though they are trained to be tough and resilient, they're still human, and all humans have limits on how much junk they'll put up with. So please talk with your children and your grandchildren and the children in your sphere of influence and explain the role of a police officer and what they should expect from them. Teach your children to respect authority and what to do when an authority figure is not living up to their responsibility. America is strong because it is safe. America is strong when we agree on the benefits of protecting our communities. Although there are bad police officers, and for those affected by bad officers, you need to reach out to your city council representative and work with them to correct that specific problem within your specific police department, while still supporting the other officers who are doing a great job. As we wrap up, please consider saying thank you to a police officer or show your support by heeding their directions when you're in a crowd or at a large event. As we conclude, I invite you to become part of the Roots of America project. You can do that by going to our website at rootsofamericaproject.com to watch and listen to our other video messages and long-form podcasts. While you're there, sign up for our free newsletter and check out some of our quality swag. Your purchases support the project. So have a great day, and I'll see you on our very next episode. Thank you very much.